today's project, I'm backdating the grill on the van. I don't think I'm going to be swapping the bumper today, but we will be getting all of the grill stuff dealt with, hopefully, so that the van mostly looks vintage at the front. So the first thing is obviously to take it apart. This piece of trim, the center grill, and this piece of trim need to come off. This top panel needs to come off because it needs to be trimmed back. The earlier grills use a different shape. This one sticks out too far. And then the buckets for the headlights and the turn signals need to come off. And then once I've got this trimmed such that I can get the grill on, which I think I'm going to have to take this panel off as well. Once I get the grill actually to fit on, then I've got to mark out where the headlights go and where the turn signals go, and I'm going to have to do some trimming of the radiator support and building some brackets because the shape is different there obviously for different shaped headlights, so I'm going to have to make a place to mount those turn signals and those headlamps in the right place so that they can be secure and can be adjusted properly. So there's everything stripped away, except obviously the bumper. The front panel needs to be trimmed conveniently. When you put the grill on here, where it stops, if you look at where it lines up with this, basically I now know, having traced that if I cut along this line that was the edge of the grill, I will have cut away enough of this for the grill to slide back. And then the other big thing is these two corners I've got to cut out, because this is right where the turn signal is. I disconnected all of the lights, but I left the plugs in for now so that I can trace wires to wire them into the correct places on the new plugs. Other than those two spots at the top and those two corners, I know that this is going to be some amount of problem, this AC line. I'm hoping I can bend that because it is aluminum, just enough for that to be clear, and I'm not sure what else may be in the way. These bump outs that held the 95 grill in place are probably going to be in the way of that grill, so we're probably going to end up cutting those off. Other than that, I'm not quite sure. This is going to be a case of fit it, find out the problems, fit it, find out the problems, fit it, find out the problems. There are bolt holes at the bottom that front valance went into that the new grill does not line up with, so I'm going to have to put new holes in for those places or drill holes in that grill to line up with the existing ones. I think I'm going to drill new holes because I think that'll be a cleaner look. So yeah, next thing, get out the angle grinder, start chopping up my van. All right, so we're really close now. Couple things, most of them related to the grill now. This grill came off a junkyard van. It's got some damage. This damage here is pushing up this flange, so this flange is not sitting flat, so I've got to do a little hammering there. There's a dent in here which has pushed this, basically this line in, which means it's hitting in there, so that's a problem. Same thing over on this side. There's this dent that's got the whole thing sort of scooped outwards. That then actually connects there and there, so there was something that hit the whole front. So what I'm going to need to do is hammer this dent out to flatten that panel, hammer this dent out to flatten that panel, and I may actually bow these slightly the other way, very slightly. And then I've got to get this corner straight. And then at that point, I am pretty darn close. The top fits fine, the sides fit fine. When I get it aligned just right, this edge drops into there. This is hitting, like I said, and this is kind of hitting here. It's definitely like not gonna go in, like it's gonna have a warp to it, I think, because this whole radiator assembly, I think, is pushed forward relative to what it was on the original 71 van. But what I'm going to do is mount, get that secured in place and then sort of pull the ends in with their own bolts and see where I am. I think at this point I got to get the grill a little straighter and then I'll come back and do the next round of fit up and figuring out. And once I get the grill straight, I'm also going to secure it at the top up here where I can, where there are holes that line up. Not, when I say line up, I mean where the metal sits flat on it, so that I can be assured that the top of the grill is straight and in the right place as I futz with everything else. But I fitted the grill onto here. It looked like it was all fitting pretty decently. I went to close the hood and it would not close because the hood was hitting the top of the grill. Massive interference. So where it is right now is it's tucked under the panel instead of on top of it, and then it's kind of forced under all the way across the front here, which lets the hood close but leaves a gap that isn't quite right. So I think it's going to stay under, but what I think I'm going to have to do, I need to trim these corners a little bit to get them a little bit better, and then I've got to do some other things here and there. Like there's a bump up here. This is very clearly where the original reach for the probably the secondary latch was, because there's a tip here and then the top of the grill is pushed up. So I need to either hammer that out down or cut that out, because that is interfering here really badly, pushing the whole thing down. And then a few other tweaks. It seems like where it is, it's almost okay. It's a little bit down, but not far enough to be a problem, and bringing it up becomes a major problem. So I think I may have to live with where it is. The left to right in the lower opening is a little off, but I think part of that is the damage to the grill. So I'm going to get that as best I can. And then the next steps are going to be, I need to put a bolt or screw through here into this to pull the whole bottom of the grill in. I need to figure that out. There's one hole that lines up over here with an original hole, so I'm going to put a bolt into that. So for right now, the top of the grill is secured on with sheet metal screws. These are very much temporary, but they secured in place. And what I did was basically all of these old holes for the old grill are too far back. So I just used the same divot and put a hole in ahead of it. What I'm going to do is get either some better sheet metal screws than these little cheap techie ones, or I'm going to use this as a reference point to drill a bigger hole, put a clip nut on, and put a screw in. I have to use screws no matter what, just for hood clearance. These I could probably sneak a small bolt on, but these at the end I couldn't, so I might as well just use a shallow screw for all of them. This bolt is in. It is working to hold the grill in place. I've got some just like exterior wood screws for right now over here because I didn't have any metal screws long enough, but that's going to get, again, a proper screw in there. So this corner still needs to get sucked in a little bit, basically. The two options are drill a hole, put a screw where this is, or there's a pre-existing hole at the very corner that I can drill a hole in the grill and pull it in. I'm actually leaning towards that outer one, even though this would be cleaner, because this will do a better job of pulling the whole corner in, whereas I'm not sure that that one will. I, on both sides, trim this very slightly, the grill, to clear this bar of the bumper. Even if I put the other bumper on, that'll be basically invisible, so I'm not too worried about that. One of the things I'm also going to do, you can see all this stuff, I'm gonna, when I get the grill all done and ready to go, the last time it comes off, everything under here is going to get cleaned and get a coat of either flat or satin black, just to hide everything behind it. You know, hide the stuff that didn't get painted, and also some of this is a little different colors and whatnot. I want it to all just disappear behind the grill. I trimmed these two corners, so they're ready to go. The next thing I have to do is basically drill a hole here so that I can get the turn signal in enough to figure out where the other two holes need to be and figure out if I can just bolt it to this or if I need to fab a panel. Same thing over here. I need to put the headlight bucket in, mark where the headlight surround is. That'll give, because it has two cutouts for the two adjusters, it'll let me know where those are. Day 2. I masked a little around the edges here to limit how much more damage I do to the paint, because I did some last time and I shouldn't have. I also ground down the worst offenders of the laceration edges from what I trimmed away, sprayed some self-etching primer on it, just so that I didn't have to start this episode by spraying paint on it and then waiting. So today what I've got to do is cut out the center of both of the headlight bucket areas, and I need to cut out a hole in the turn signal area here too, so that I can start fitting those in place. All right, a couple things. First off, I don't know if you noticed or not, but I suddenly noticed, and I don't know how the heck I missed this yesterday, but I had the whole assembly in upside down. The headlight literally has lettering on it to tell you which direction it goes. It's supposed to go this way with an adjuster on the outside and an adjuster at the top and the spring on the inside. If I'd looked at literally any picture of any Chevy that uses these kinds of sealed beam lights, I would have seen that, but I didn't. The positive part is I need a hole here and I need a hole here, which isn't quite a place I can put a hole, but it is close enough to this metal I can just kind of weld something to it. Which brings me though to my new problem. These are the modern headlight adjusters that came off the square headlights. These are a set of vintage style that came off the right era for these. They'll both work on this. They're both the same idea. I don't know if the threads match. Okay, the threads don't match. But, so we'll have to check these. But these thread into little bosses that are pushed into square holes. They're plastic bosses. And these are some weird size I've never encountered before. I have a set of thread checkers. They don't match any of them. They appear to be an M10, but with a weird, like maybe it's a 1.5 or 1.25 or something, but they're not the one M10 by 1 that I have. The holes for the screws for the lower turn signals seem to be the exact same weird ass thread though. So here I am with a dilemma. Technically I should be using adjuster mounty things, but these all require a square hole, which is an absolute bastard to make. You have to drill a round hole and then manually file it out to square, which would suck. The other option is to cut out here and here and move those to use these adjusters, or use these threaded hole thingies here, because it looks like, since this headlight's going to sit back a little bit more, I think those will work just fine. The problem is one of them I cut out of this space. The other ones are, two are back here and one is here. So I'd have to cut another piece of metal out down here just to get that second adjuster or second threaded boss out. And like I said, they're a weird size, so I can't get a nut for it. So I can't just use a nut. These, I need to double check these. These might solve my problem, because if this is not some weird ass size and I have a nut for it, I'll just switch to these and use them. But yeah, I need to drill a hole and put in some sort of thingy here. I need to probably weld or make whatever I'm doing to a piece of metal and then get the headlight in the right position and tack weld that to here. And then over here, I'm going to have to drill a hole to mount some sort of arrangement for either this hook or the other ones that I have somewhere to hook in, because this we'll just need to lock in, because this pulls the other side of the bucket down. So it's held in place by the two adjusters, but this over here keeps it in line, so that you're not adjusting 4 separate adjusters and constantly effing everything up. Once I figure this side out, the other side will be pretty quick to duplicate, because I'll make all my mistakes here and then, as always, make them faster on the other side. All right, headlight is in. It is nowhere near adjusted. I'm going to wait till I obviously wire it up and get both of them in to do that. It's not perfect. It's like, I don't know, a millimeter, 2 millimeters low theoretically, except that this adjuster is also pretty near the top here. Like, it feels like it's a little too low, but I don't know how it could go up by much more. I can maybe bend the top plate up here and pull the top up very slightly, but then this one will be off alignment. So I think that's where it's supposed to be. When I look at it from back here, it looks okay. This, I was talking about having to put a bracket in to push it out, but realistically, what ended up happening was I drilled a hole. This light only has one mounting screw at the moment. The other one snapped off when I was taking it off the donor van. I drilled a hole for that screw, and now it's pushed back against the back panel. And as you can see, it's not too far in by any stretch of imagination. If anything, it's too far out. The front, this corner of the bumper still needs to get sucked in a little bit. And at that point, this will actually be sticking out proud. But that's okay, because that's how it's going to fit. I don't think I'm going to cut away a bunch to try and bring this back in unless it looks really ridiculous when I finally get it, the grill pulled in, or if it interferes over here to the point where it doesn't work. Then I'll worry about cutting out more and pulling the light back in, but we're going to hold off on that for the moment. So now I have to basically duplicate that on that side. Once I get both lights in, then it's wiring. I'm really happy with that. That worked out pretty well. It's kind of a pain in the butt to do, but it got done, and that's the important part. All right, that's where we are for today. This side took much longer and was a bigger pain than I expected. The shape in here is a little different and it caused me some problems, but I got that handled. Hit everything with self-etching primer and then hit everything with semi-gloss black. I wasn't trying to do a perfect job, I'm just trying to get the space behind the grill to mostly disappear. To get a little overspray on the bumper, I'll get that after I'm done. But didn't quite get as far as I expected because this side took way longer than I had hoped. Day 3 of the van grill swap, and today we're starting with turn signals. So on all of these, there's one or more of the studs that have broken clean off. These are pressed in, well, they're pressed in and other pieces pressed on the back to hold them in place. I can't duplicate that, so what I'm going to be doing is cutting these off flush, drilling them out, and then just using a 1/4 inch by 20 bolt, because it's the same thread pitch, to replace it. And from the inside, I'm going to be tack welding that in place. I'm actually tack welding from the outside now that I'm looking at it. The lenses are going to get a quick cleanup and polish. The insides are going to get a cleanup and some chrome paint, and the outsides are just going to get whatever paint just to slow this rust down. So the first bolt that I welded in here was a cuckoo in the nest. It was the wrong size in that bin, so this one's too large. So there's everything cleaned up and painted up. So I've replaced the studs. I've wire brushed the rust. The outside got a coating of Rust-Oleum paint and primer, which will be good enough. The inside got this chrome spray paint that I've had from another project. So that should be all good in there. That'll definitely boost the brightness of the bulb a little bit. The lenses are inside the house because I just washed them, like gave them a good scrubbing. They're going to get a little bit of plastic polish possibly. Depends what they look like after they're done drying. And then these are ready to go in. Really happy with them. I think, well, these aren't great, but they're not terrible. I think I'm going to choose the two. Same with everything, I'm going to choose the two best ones. I'm going to put these back in. I'm going to look and see if I can find replacement gaskets, but obviously I can't do it right now. And the lenses will be removable after, so I'm not too stressed about that. But yeah, nice and simple. These are now ready to rock and will properly bolt in and look a little bit nicer. So on to the next thing. Now we're on to the wiring phase. I've mounted this in place because it grounds through the bracket into the body. So I ended up using the original nuts for it because they've got this star washer that kind of bites in, chews through the paint and gets to the metal so that this will properly ground out. And then coming off of this, I have a blue wire and a brown wire. And as far as the stock 95 wiring is concerned, those are the headlights. I have this that has 3 wires, and this that has 2. The one that has 2, it looks like black and brown. The one that has 3 looks like black and brown and blue. So if I'm very lucky, they kept their wiring consistent, and blue and blue and brown will work, at which point I can just eliminate this circuit. Because this had 2 lights, one was always a running light, one was a running light and turn signal. So, which I've actually broken the bulb on. So I think I'm going to tap off of this one. The ground wires are irrelevant because this had grounds because the housing was plastic. But hopefully that brown and the blue will be the same brown and blue as here, and I can just splice them right in and be done with them. So with those exposed, I'll be able to test them. So what I'm going to do now is turn on the parking lights and turn on the right blinker. So brown appears to be my park light, and blue is my turn signal. Simple enough. All right, less progress than expected, but the progress I needed to have happened. So yeah, the blue and the brown, exactly what I thought they were. They match up. GM shockingly never changed those colors. So it took a little tweaking because it turns out the bulb I had was bad, even though it looked good. But those are in and hooked up. I actually ended up, there's a ground, like I said, there was a ground that ran to the original bulb in this 95. So I decided, let's not be stupid about trying to make this ground to the body. And instead I ran that ground to a little thing and put that on the screw on the back. So now this housing is grounded to a ground wire. So that should solve any ground issues I have. This is all mounted in. For these, the one with the brown wire is the low beam, and the one with the green wire is the high beam. Both have a ground, simple enough. But the connectors I have for the back of the lights are as rough as you'd expect from something from the 1970s. So it's stupid to wire those in and then just potentially give myself problems. So what I'm going to do instead is get myself 2 new sealed beam connectors, 2 new sealed beams, 2 new lights, put all brand new stuff in here to give me my best chance of everything working right. All right, next day. Grille is in with new, better screws up here and over there. Turn signal lenses are in with bulbs. Turns out the lenses have a left and a right side, except that the only difference between them is this little bump on the top that makes them a left or a right. Like they are basically the same thing. I do not understand Chevy ever, because the bucket is essentially the same bucket flipped one way or the other, except for the locating feature that makes it have to be a left or a right because of the tab that makes the lens have to be a left or a right. Whatever. They look a little funny in their angling and whatnot. That's just how they have to be mounted. They should be level to the grill, but the panel and everything else is not level to the grill. So doing the best I can. But they're in, they function. That one took a little bit of cleaning and fettling before it got a good electrical connection inside, but now it's working great. So I have park lamps and I have turn signals on the front. We're making progress. I need to wire up the new headlight connectors and install the headlights. A problem I'm now running into is all of these rings among the 4 buckets I have are all failing. Like the little cheap spot welds in them are all coming apart. So I don't know that I have 2 good ones between the 4 buckets. So I think I'm going to end up having to assemble it with what I've got and then track down more of those. I know I can buy them, I'm just not sure where, because it's not a common thing anymore. But they're all coming apart. So anyway, we're gonna make it work. I got the new connectors for here so I can get the headlights in. I only have 1 headlight right now, new, because that's all this auto parts store had in stock, and I didn't have time to stop at a second store. So what I'm probably gonna do is just put an old headlight in the other side just for the moment to get everything working, with the intent of, I'm gonna put the old headlight on this side because I have to replace the ring. So I'll just replace them both down the road. The other thing is this front emblem, which goes here. I had to go get new, whatever the hell these screws are called, the self-screwy uni ones. Had to get new ones of these. And getting them on the back of this is going to be a pain with the grill installed. I don't know that I want to take the grill off for the umpteenth time. Except that I also never trimmed this. This is where the hood rod goes. So I can't hook the hood rod in place until I trim away this little bit. So I'm going to have to, what I'm probably going to do is take all the screws out, tip the grill forward, put this on, cut that out, put it back in without fully removing it, 'cause I think that'll give me enough clearance. All right, so they're in. That one I'm pretty happy with. That one seems to be working well. This one I'm really not. No part of this one went together well. I had difficulty getting both of the adjusters in. And then when I was trying to fit it right now, it wouldn't sit right because I realized it needs a pivot over here inboard of the where the spring is. And on the other side, it's pivoting on the sheet metal. On this side, the sheet metal's cut too far back. So I actually stuck a piece of wood in here to act as that, to get this to stay in place. But then this ring, which was intact when I took it off, one of the 3 little tabs snapped off sometimes in the last like 5 minutes, which is frustrating because that one I had to weld 2 of the tabs back on. This headlight bulb itself I need to replace. So I'm really just not happy with how this side went together. I'm okay with how that side went together. So I think what I'm doing at this point is I'm leaving this as is. I'm going to make sure that it adjusts. As long as it adjusts reasonably well, it's going to stay where it is right now. And I think I'm going to go buy 2 headlight assemblies for something else. Like, see if I can find one. I'm sure they're out there for some other Chevy that has the ring, the bucket, and the adjusters attached to some sort of plate, like that's designed to screw to a radiator support. I know there's some Chevys that use that. I can't remember of any off the top of my head, but I know they're out there. And I think I'm going to get a pair of those and then make those work in here instead of what I've got right now. I'm just not happy with how this all came together. It came together okay, but not great. And this item really, the more I'm looking at it, the less I like it. So I think if I get that, where it's all a complete assembly, then I can figure out how to fit that assembly. The biggest problem is that this radiator support is all kinds of weird and bumpy, designed around 2 lights there and 2 lights here rather than 1 light here. So I think something like that will allow me to do something different. Because if I have something that's flat and just needs to attach to flat, then what I can do is where this is flat, I can cut away, extend that plate over, tie it in, and then just attach the headlight to it. But for now, this will do. This is okay. I'm going to track down a headlight, obviously. I'm going to track down another one of these rings, because the other two buckets I have, the rings are a different depth, and unless I use that ring with that bucket, they don't actually work. So at this point, I'm going to put the surrounds on, and I'm going to call this project done for now. All right, and here we are. It's just starting to rain as I'm filming this, but hell yeah, it looks completely different. It's changed the van entirely. Like, that basically backdates it. I'm really happy with that. It's going to need a little bit more cleaning and polishing. I'm really glad I painted everything behind it, because that helps it hide all of that a lot better. The turn signals could do to be cocked a little bit more, but that's going to stay the way it is for now. When I swap out the headlights for better bucket design, I'll probably do those at the same time. I'll probably modify that section as well. Redo everything back there to be a little cleaner and a little better installed. But for now, they're fine. They're okay. Don't bother me. And yeah, I now have a vintage looking van, at least from the front. Thank you all very much for watching my grill conversion project, and I will talk to you all later. Bye.